you've got the rare opportunity to meet with a entrepreneur, founder of a company, well, not founder, the son of the founder, and an investor in that company, both kind of the similar age and sometimes the same mindset. We'll kind of head shrink the two of you a little bit to see where there's agreement, where there's disagreement, and philosophy about growth, funding a company, raising a company, you know, and changing a company in midstream. So,
great.
So for those of you who don't know Qualtrics, Bryan over on the right is the CEO. I'll let you launch into that. And Bryan here is a partner at Sequoia Capital, on the board of Qualtrics, as well as Dropbox and Thumbtack, and was like a rising star at Google about 10 years ago, ran their international sales group and worked directly for Sheryl Sandberg, and then joined Sequoia about six or 7 years ago. 7 years ago. Yeah. But Ryan, why don't you start by telling a little bit about the Qualtrics stories for those of us who don't know?
Yeah, so great. So first of all, this is great to be here, especially with Bryan. We don't ever do this, ever. So it's interesting. Qualtrics we started as a junior. I was a junior in college, and we started in my parents' basement with a goal to make sophisticated research simple, which we started with online surveys, which, you know, to some people isn't very sexy. And we decided to go after the academic market. So we wanted every student and every faculty member and the staff at a university to use Qualtrics, and we actually accomplished that. So every university in the world's on Qualtrics. And then our mission shifted in 2008, 2009 as companies started really struggling. They started wanting to ask more questions and get real data to make decisions, and that's where we launched into the enterprise. And so we are the leading enterprise platform for insights and data collections and analytics. And it's going really well. We have 7,000 brands. We focus on 3 core markets, which are customer sentiment or customer analysis, everything you need to know about your customer, everything you need to know about your employee, and everything you need to know about your market. And we believe the platform we're creating is going to be every bit as valuable as a CRM or an HRM like Workday, because every organization needs Qualtrics.
Okay. So I want to talk about how you two met, because it's a little bit unusual. Also, the funding itself was a little unusual. I mean, Sequoia is known for getting in big and early with prime companies like Google and
Google, Apple, Yahoo, more recently WhatsApp, Dropbox, Airbnb.
Right. So Qualtrics was not first, it's not a Valley company. It's in Salt Lake or outside Salt Lake. So that's one thing. And when you came in, I'll let you tell the story, but when you came in, it was kind of already profitable, already big. It had bootstrapped itself up to that point.
Yeah.
How did you get in, or how'd you sell the deal to your partners? What did you have? Was there anything dramatic about that?
For sure. So, yeah, I think that Sequoia is really known for making very early stage investments in companies, seed or Series A, and that has been our bread and butter for a long time. We also have an additional fund called a growth fund, which will get involved with companies later on. And actually, the bullseye company to partner up with later in their life cycle is a bootstrap company. There's actually, from an investor standpoint, there's no more pure type of setup than to go to a company who actually doesn't need your money at all and still try to prove to them that you can help make an impact and that you'd be someone great to partner with. And so for me, this has been just the experience of a lifetime, because it's funny that you just know for certain that it was not about the money. It's about the relationship and the ability to work together as complements.
So if it wasn't about the money, Ryan, why did you need the money, or why did you take the money?
Well, we had to charge them something to get in the tent with us. No, I think there's definitely a price to pay to get in, but you know, we turned down. I remember at one point we had offers from a valuation standpoint that were $100 million higher, but what we wanted was partners to help us, you know, go to battle together and hopefully make 1 and 1 equal like 5 instead of 2, and looking back 2.5 years, we feel like we threaded the needle. We got the right partners, and if you look at the growth of Qualtrics, it's just absolutely accelerated to be what we thought it could be back then. And in some ways, we were interested in thought partners. And I think, fortunately enough, we had built the foundation of our company where we got to choose that. And I personally think that there's not enough entrepreneurs out there that are in that driver's seat, and if they were, they would change the way they would go. And if you're going to be doing it for a long time, then it's important to get the people around that want to do it for a long time as well.
So can you take us back to like boardroom discussions, like the kinds of things, the kinds of clear advice that Bryan gave to you that you hadn't thought of before? I mean, because you live this company, so you know where all the soft spots are, where you want to go. Like, how did Bryan change your mind about anything?
So, I think Bryan did a fabulous job, and Bryan, I'm partners with my brother Jared, who was at Google, and Jared and Bryan worked together for a long time there. So we already had a relationship there, but if I were to think of key moments, I think one of the moments was with Bryan and Mike Moritz, a Sequoia partner, at a dinner once, and one of my big fears was, hey, I'm building this great tech company in Utah. What, are they going to make me move to the Valley? And like, I'd wake up in the middle of the night sweating, going, I cannot build this thing in the Valley. Like, our model works in Utah, and everything's great there. Yeah. That's where I live. Like, I'm not putting my kids in school out there. And the cool thing was, both Bryan and Mike were like, look, we believe in you. We believe you can take this to where you want to go. We're on board with you. But also, you can do it in Utah. And I think that was what we needed. And we're super excited. And we know you guys don't need the money, but we want to be the partner to help you get there.
Right.
And, there's probably a lot more to that story, but that's something that just sticks out as one of those moments where I saved the menu from the restaurant and I got it, and I was like, this was a pivotal point in our journey.
We spend a lot of time on things like team, on things like go-to-market, and the wonderful thing about working together, it's really a two-way street, because Qualtrics, what you may not know about the company is they have probably the most powerful go-to-market of any software company out there today. They are a very large business growing at an accelerating growth rate, and they're generating cash. And I don't think you can actually identify another one of these unicorn types of companies that has all of those attributes. It's just killer. And so the ability to take the learnings of this company, the best practices of this company, and internalize them and be a better advisor to other companies has been tremendous. But at the end of the day, my job is never to try to make Bryan do something. It's about being a thought partner, and if I really feel strongly about something, it's trying to help influence them to head in the right direction, although it's normally just a tweak of a degree or two.
Right. So, so Qualtrics went from being like mostly an academic sold, a product sold to academics, to now having like 3 different products sold to big companies, right? Like Global 2000 companies. So that's a different sales cycle, different salespeople, and your other company, Dropbox, is going through a similar shift, right? Like, are you bringing any kind of insights or back and forth between the two about how to go?
It's actually kind of funny. There's a lot of collaboration in the Sequoia network, and so I know that Qualtrics has actually hosted people from Dropbox, and Dropbox has hosted people from Qualtrics as they trade learnings in the areas where they're real experts. Dropbox started really their focus on business a couple of years ago now, and so they've got a fully ramped multi-channel approach to the market, which is awesome. And it's more of a Google than an enterprise sales company. But yeah, it's a great example of just the cross-pollination of ideas.
Right. So the money, you raised about 220, I think it is, across the A and B, and it's also a rare Sequoia XL deal. These two firms that kind of compete, but it's a big deal for you guys to get together. How do you avoid choking on that much money? Like, where is it all going? Like, how do you avoid not just getting drunk on it?
Have you spent any of it?
No, not really. Look, well,
you better start spending, because it doesn't earn that much sitting in the bank.
Yeah. Look, I think we come from a different world. I mean, we had a ton of money before we took funding in the bank. We were paying, we had a lot of money. We had a lot of things that were going right, fortunately, because we bootstrapped so long. But we've started to invest heavily in the business. I mean, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when I went to Founders for the first time, I was out there kind of with this hope to go check out a Dublin office, and Scheirer's like, you got to go international, you got to go international. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. It's like, no, let's go. And, today we have over 100 people in Dublin. We've got 26,000 square feet. We have 2 empty floors. We just opened up Sydney. We opened up Seattle. We opened up Dallas. We've got a DC office now. And we're just absolutely accelerating. Like you said, we've got 3 different products that we're investing in, but on the HR side or the employee side, on the customer side, and on the market side. And each one of those could be a standalone multi-billion-dollar platform, and we're doing all of them together at once, which you're not going to be able to tiptoe into that market. So we're heavily invested back in there, and then we've got this nest egg in case we need it, but we still want to run the business so that there's true principles. We don't want to, what I call fuel the jet, where you stick the money in and the jet flies. The second you pull that fuel out, it falls. That's not true growth. And it's just going to screw us all up. So what we want to do is we want to say, okay, where's our next $100 million product or $200 million product similar to what we created in the market research side, where everyone in the world is doing surveys on Qualtrics?
Yeah, I think generating cash or having a low burn rate, it's not something that's talked a lot about. People aren't talking about that today, but it truly is a superpower for a company, because it means that you're cycle proof. There will always be a technology cycle, and that you can do unnatural things when it comes to competing in your market. You can go into new areas and you can pile in, and you have a sustainable model, and there's just much less risk around the entire company. So it's so much easier to outflank the competition.
And having a long runway is super important. No one wants to have a timer strapped to their back. Unfortunately, we're able to have long runway. If you look at other companies that have had long runways, Michael Dell had an extremely long runway. Larry and Sergey had a pretty long runway, partly because of their cap table and what they own. Bill Gates had a long runway. Yep. And if entrepreneurs have enough time, typically they'll figure it out. But you've seen through these cycles that people can't weather the storm. Our business grew at our fastest rate in 2007, 8, and 9, which is unheard of. Going in, I was scared to death. I thought the whole world was going to crash around us, but we kind of dug our heels in and just grinded.
Yeah. Is that through because you didn't depend too much on financial services, or how did that happen in a recession?
Well, I think if you look at our product, the old way of doing things was outsourcing data collection, analysis, and these big projects to be right, and people weren't outsourcing enough, and they were just throwing mud at the wall to see what would stick. And when economy gets tight, companies can only place a certain amount of bets, and they need to be right. And so every decision companies started making, they wanted the data to be right, and they wanted to do it quick. And that's where Qualtrics came in. They could buy Qualtrics, they could Qualtrics it, they get the data back, they know what to name the next cruise ship, what ports to go to, how to price their product, and you could do it whether you were a 5-person startup or a Fortune 500 company, and that's why it took off, because the old way was this huge expense and they weren't doing it.
Yeah, it's funny, Bruce, I'm thinking about the conference and all the entrepreneurs here, and one of the things that you probably won't hear from an investor is that I actually encourage you not to raise money. I can tell you how many companies I meet each year who I think, wow, you could actually build this company to be great the way Ryan and Jared and the rest of their team did without actually raising a penny. And I probably shouldn't say this, but you would be so much better off doing that. It could have to do with the market size. It could have to do with the ability to build a capital efficient company thanks to things like AWS and others. But I actually think there's a very small subset of startups that actually truly should raise venture. And maybe that's something that you haven't heard since you've been here that you might take away with you to think about. And it also enables you to turn the tables on investors when you're speaking with them and put them on the spot and say, why should I raise money, period? And if I do that, why should I raise it from you?
Well, it seems like and I hate to use the bubble term, but it seems like so many companies are raising so much money. What are they doing? If you're telling them not to?
I don't think I've actually said that publicly before. And it's not something I would say to you if you came into a one-on-one meeting, because I want to respect why you're there for a meeting. You know, I want to respect that, and I want to listen to the pitch. But like I said, I don't think it's the right thing for every company to do. The reason so many companies are raising money right now is because I think there's never been a greater opportunity set. There's never been more capital available. And so I think you can also make the point, which is obviously the business that I'm in, which is that if you have enormous opportunity on the table and it's worth the dilution from investors to accelerate your entrance into that market, then absolutely raise the money, especially if it's from a partner that you want to work with for a decade. But that is a very rare setup. Very rarely do you have an enormous opportunity, the ability to drive into a greenfield market, go really fast from day one, and you will need the cash to do that. But if you're honest with yourself, that's kind of like a 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000 type of business.
I can hear Twitter take off. Don't raise money. Bryan Schreier, Sequoia. It's interesting because in an entrepreneur standpoint, it seems like we're just having a race to see who could raise more money at times with the media, because the media comes around it. But if you think about a fundraising event, we just raised last fall and everyone's like, Ryan, congratulations, like, way to go. And I'm like, why are you congratulating me?
Right.
When was the last time you congratulated someone on, hey, that was a hell of a mortgage you just took out on your house? Like, way to go. That was awesome. You nailed that mortgage. And it's like, no, wish
and it was really big, too.
It was really big,
awesome.
dude. You're like, you're so far out over your skis. This is awesome, right? And it's like, no, wish me freaking luck.
Right.
That just means my optionality of this company just got way more narrow. And when we went through our fundraising round, we could have sold our company. We could have done nothing and bootstrapped. We could have raised from a VC or private equity group the first time around. The next time around, we could have done nothing, gone through that same thing, but also go public. And the way we think about fundraising is, I don't want to do anything that cuts off one of those fingers. Optionality is unbelievable because we don't know what the market's going to do. We don't know what competitors we're going to have to buy. We don't know anything. We just want to be able to navigate that, and you need options. And we've seen companies that don't have options, and what happens?
Yeah. And is that one of the things you look for in a CEO who thinks that way? Because I think of the other company, WhatsApp, was like a killer deal for Sequoia, and they had to beg, you had to beg to get into that company because they didn't want to take money. They didn't trust VCs. They didn't need any money.
I think it's kind of classic human psychology, but those tend to be the ones that are going to be, the greatest outcomes. It was the same way here. I mean, Ryan was batting away investors for years. I think it was really the fact that his brother Jared is a co-founder as well, and I go back to 2003, was one of the big reasons that they chose to let someone else in the tent. And handing over a stock certificate to someone is something you cannot get back, which is another reason why I encourage people to be really careful about taking investments. You don't get those shares back. So it's not to be taken lightly.
I think the other thing you got to think about is just like when you hire someone, you got to look at them and say, okay, what's this person's trajectory, right? When we're 3 or 4x, am I going to be looking back at this person, or is this person still going to be ahead of me leading? And if you think about, when we took investment from both Sequoia and Excel, I think both the trajectory of those companies have skyrocketed, and that's pretty cool. So our investors have a long shelf life. I see a lot of companies that they'll take on investment from someone. 3 years later, that person can't even help them navigate at all because they're in such uncharted waters.
You mean the investor is in over their head?
Yeah, they're way over their head, right? And so one of the reasons why we wanted to work with Bryan is like, look, he's been an operator, he's been in finance, and he's on the investment side. Like, he's got a long shelf life. He's going to be able to ramp with us as long as, he's on the same trajectory we are.
Right. So there's, you're an enterprise business, and there's the high margin, very big market, still untapped. There's a case to be made to not make a profit. Like, you just go, do a Salesforce thing. Accounting is a different situation with a SaaS company, but if you're making an 80% gross margin, why aren't you just gunning the motor? And why aren't you telling them to do that? Just spend, and go for it.
I'll let you answer, obviously, but since you asked me, why not? I think at Sequoia, we just have it, and Excel's this way too. Ryan Sweeney from Excel, who's on the board with us, is just a fabulous.
Ryan and Bryan, is that right? Okay.
He's just a fabulous advisor to the company. I wish he was here. We believe in building enduring companies. Actually, you brought up Dropbox earlier. That company was generating cash from very early on too. That's the way we kind of roll as a firm.
Yeah.
And we want to build companies that will be around for generations, not just to make a press release on how big of a mortgage they were able to take out this week, which really has a half-life of about a day.
Yep.
Right.
And so, from my standpoint, first of all, we're spending like drunken sailors, it feels like, right? I mean, we had 350 employees last year, and we have 700 employees now. We hired 115 people last quarter. I mean, you can't run in front of the team. And we've made a decision to invest back in the business at a rate that we've never done before. And we're literally in hypergrowth mode. 5 offices in 18 months is probably more than most companies can digest. But we're not going to be stupid as well. I'm not going to spend $700,000 a month on banner ads, which is what a lot of this money that you're seeing is going towards.
Yeah.
And it's just the ROI just isn't there. And we're thinking long term.
Acquisitions, have you done any? Is that part of the plan?
We haven't done any yet, but we're looking. It's actually something we discussed on the way here is like, we got to buy someone this year. There's so much out there that's for sale. Like, we need to go do this. And we have the money to do it. We just, it's just all timing. We got to make sure this first one goes well, and that'll definitely be a big part of our strategy.
But would you play the same conservative cards, like only buy companies that have a minimal burn?
Yeah, we'll normally buy a company. The way we look at it is either the talent, the technology, or the people.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of stuff that have either none of the three or 2 or 3, but obviously it's probably the same as you investing if you can get someone that's got revenue and has market traction. But where our business is going, that'll be a big part of it.
Don't have a lot of time, but Bryan, I want to let you the last word. Like,
sure.
What's your state of the industry right now, like startup land? It seems everyone's is convinced it's nutty. Is it nuttier than we think? Is there actually a reason for the way things are right now?
It's a little bit of what I said earlier, in that I don't think there's ever been a time where there's been greater opportunity. And while, of course, these valuations that are kind of coming through everyone's email inbox every single day are getting just very large, and there's a high frequency of those types of releases. At the same time, you do have companies like Qualtrics, and there are more really strong companies now than ever before. And so I think the hard part is really figuring out which one's the emperor without any clothes. And just because a company says it raises at $272 billion, that actually doesn't mean anything.
Right.
First of all, there's a preference where those investors get their money back no matter what happens. And then there can be all kinds of financial structure on it. And then who knows what the actual performance or profile of the business is. And so I think, if anything, everyone should be just going a lot deeper into the fundamentals before they make quick judgments on joining a company, acquiring a company, or getting the wrong idea. It's a lot deeper than evaluation.
Okay. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks.